Hi, this is Tony Northrup for Train Signal, and welcome to this objective. Objective 1.2 covers how to install Windows 8. So let's look at the sub-objectives. This objective has 4 sub-objectives, and I'm not going to cover them in this order, but this is the official order. The first is install as Windows to Go. What this does is it lets you boot Windows 8 from a USB flash drive. It's really cool. You can take a custom build of Windows 8, which has all your custom apps and even like virtual private network connections, plug it into any Windows 8 computer or any computer capable of running Windows 8, even if it has another operating system on it, and boot it from that flash drive, and then you have your own custom build there. It's perfect for organizations that want to be able to let people work from their PCs at home without having to give them mobile PCs that cost a lot of money and without worrying that they might have viruses and such installed. The second sub-objective is migrate from Windows XP or Windows Vista to Windows 8. I'm going to walk you through the process of migrating from both XP and Vista because they're a little bit different, but don't worry, you won't have to sit there through the entire long process. I'm going to zip you through it in just a couple of minutes and show you all the important stuff. The next sub-objective is to upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8, or to upgrade from one edition of Windows 8 to another edition of Windows 8. And as you start to upgrade from more recent operating systems, it becomes easier and easier, so that's going to be really a breeze. And the last sub-objective is to install Windows 8 as a VHD. A VHD is a virtual hard drive file. So basically you can put your entire Windows 8 install in one big file. And this makes it really easy for you to copy it to another computer or to back it up because you're not dealing with thousands of different files. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is to start up old Windows XP and see if we can't migrate it over to Windows 8. So who remembers this? This is the Windows XP desktop and the old school start menu. Everything's all bubbly like a little kid made it or something. Let's make a couple of customizations to this so that we can see whether they get transferred over after the upgrade. I'll just change this to a different desktop. All right, some fish. And you can see I have installed a custom app, Google Chrome, my favorite browser. So let's create a custom document so we can test to see whether our documents get transferred over. So with those couple of customizations, we're ready to get started. The first thing we need to do, if you remember from Objective 1.1, is to verify that Service Pack 3 is installed. So I opened up the Start menu, right-clicked Computer, and then selected Properties to show the System Properties dialog box. As you can see, it's Windows XP Service Pack 3. That means I'm good to go on the install. If I had Service Pack 1 or 2 installed or no Service Packs at all, I wouldn't be able to upgrade until I installed them. So now I'll insert the Windows 8 DVD and we can start with the upgrade. So I will find the DVD in Explorer. Here it is. And double clicking it launches the auto run. The first page is going to prompt you to go online and get the latest updates for the setup routine. After Microsoft releases Windows 8, they might go back and discover that some things don't work quite the way you want. So it is a good idea to go ahead and get the updates. There's a checkbox down here that just sends some feedback to Microsoft. It's generally pretty anonymous and it might help them improve the update process. So in this case, Microsoft had released updates to the setup process, and the setup process downloaded those updates and applied them. Now, restarting the Windows 8 setup process, you'll see we already discovered one problem, something that will prevent this and many other Windows XP computers from being upgraded properly. And this computer does not have 16 gigabytes available. That's a pretty big drive for when they used to make Windows XP computers. So this is something you need to be aware of. Windows 8 needs quite a bit of free space for an upgrade. It doesn't need as much for a clean install. So you might be able to perform a clean install on a computer that you wouldn't be able to perform an upgrade on. So now that you've seen this example, we will go ahead and repeat this process on a computer that has enough storage space. So here's the computer after the disk upgrade. I'll just view the properties of the disk, and we can verify a free disk space of 100 gigs now. So this should allow us to move farther in the setup process. I'll double click the Windows 8 setup CD once again. So this time around, the Windows 8 setup was able to verify that our configuration would work. And the first thing it's going to ask for is your product key. Now, in earlier versions of Windows, you were able to skip this. You can't skip it in Windows 8. You really need to put the product key in now. So that makes it a little more difficult for people who might be installing it in test scenarios, because you used to be able to install Windows 7 or earlier versions of Windows and play around with them for a while, and it would warn you, oh, you need to enter your product key in quickly to activate. There's no skipping the product key now. So if you don't have a Windows 8 product key, but you just want to test it, it's probably cheapest just to go out and buy it. You can also go to TechNet or MSDN and get a subscription that will allow you to put in product keys. So I'll type my product key in now. And here's the license agreement, and I know everybody is going to read every word of this because it's very important, and you have to confirm that you've read it all clearly and click accept. Now, Windows 8 is going to prompt you what you want to keep. Now, I want you to make a mental note of what you see on this dialog box. It gives you two options: keep personal files or keep nothing. And neither one of those might be what you want. You probably want to keep your apps and your settings, but you don't get that chance with Windows XP. You get one of these two choices. But when you upgrade from other operating systems, which we'll be doing later in this objective, you'll see that you have other options available. So I'm going to pick the default, which is to keep my personal files, because that's the best it lets me do. And Windows 8 setup is ready to go. So I will click install. Now, here's the great part about video training. This is going to take a little bit. It's usually only 10 or 15 minutes, but you won't have to sit here and wait for the whole thing. We're going to be able to fast forward you. So I will let this run, and we'll skip forward to the good stuff. So on this screen, Windows 8 is giving you a choice between starting Windows 8 or starting the Windows setup, and this can be a little confusing. At this point, Windows 8 has been installed, but I haven't removed the Windows 8 DVD. So this is the screen that you'll always get if you leave the Windows 8 DVD in and your computer is set up to boot from the DVD. So basically, Windows 8 is set up and it's going to start, but it sees you have the setup DVD in there and it thinks maybe they want to do a clean install, maybe they need to repair it. So I'm going to prompt them to choose between Windows 8 or Windows 8 setup. But you can just select Windows 8 to continue with setup. And after 5, 10, 15 minutes, Windows 8 will show you the full screen Windows 8 interface. This is continuing the setup process. The first screen here allows you to personalize Windows 8. You can just drag this to select a different color. This really is all the different color combinations you can choose from. You cannot, say, mix and match a pink and a green if it's not an option that's available here. If you need accessibility tools, you can click this icon here to turn on narrator or magnifier or the on-screen keyboard. These are if you're not comfortable using a traditional screen, keyboard, and mouse. For example, if you have vision issues or if you use an alternate input form. The settings page gives you a chance to use your express settings, which are all the default settings that Windows 8 uses by default. And that's what I do. But you should be familiar with the individual settings. So I will click Customize and we can walk through them here. The first is Windows Update, and it controls whether or not your PC will automatically download updates and which updates it will download and install from Microsoft. The default option installs everything that's both important and recommended. These are just different levels that Microsoft categorizes their updates as. I like important and recommended updates. I would do them both. If you only want the important updates, which are going to be things like the critical security updates, and you want to decide individually for the updates that Microsoft deems less important, you can select automatically install just the important updates. And if you want to manually install all your updates, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but select Don't Set Up Windows Update. Now, those settings do not apply for device drivers and apps, but you can turn on automatic updates for those, and I suggest you leave that on. If you're worried that somebody might release an updated driver for your PC and it might not be compatible, and you want to go through and review every driver that you want to update, you should turn that off. Now, these next three settings relate to your privacy and security when you're browsing the web. The first is the Windows Smart Screen filter. Now, Smart Screen was a feature in earlier versions of Internet Explorer, in earlier versions of Windows, and it still works within Internet Explorer. But they've expanded Smart Screen to now work within Windows itself. See, I think Microsoft figured out that not everybody uses Internet Explorer to browse the web. Truth is, I don't use Internet Explorer. Nobody I know uses Internet Explorer. People like Chrome or they like Firefox, but Internet Explorer isn't all that common anymore. So they wanted to still take these Smart Screen security features and make them available for people who decide to use other browsers. So the new thing is Windows Smart Screen filter, and it runs within the OS. And any file that you download from the internet, no matter how you download it, including other browsers, Windows can check it out. Now, this is really great. It can help tell you if it's malware. It can warn you about phishing websites. I like to leave it on. If you feel confident in your security or you have some other system set up, you can turn it off. The next controls the Internet Explorer Smart Screen filter. This is exactly like it was in earlier versions of Windows and earlier versions of Internet Explorer. It only works when you're browsing the web with Internet Explorer, but it will just tell you, hey, this website might be a phishing website. Continue on at your own risk. And the last controls whether Internet Explorer sends a do not track request to websites. This is just Internet Explorer saying, hey, please forget my information after I leave the website. You can leave this on or off. This is only going to help if the website is nice and cooperative and respects your request. Not all websites do, and certainly malicious websites wouldn't. So it's a little tough to consider this a security feature, but it's more of a privacy feature, and it's voluntary on the website's part. Now, on the settings page, you can control which information Windows sends back to Microsoft to help improve Windows. So they can kind of watch what you're doing and tell Microsoft, hey, this failed. This is the type of thing this user likes. It's anonymous, so they can't associate it with your name, but they log data and, they might use it. I don't care if they watch what I'm doing on my computer. I know they're not going to come back to Tony Northrup and say, hey, why are you using this app so much? It's anonymous. I feel fine with the privacy. So I like to turn these features on, but honestly, you individually won't benefit in any short-term way. So if you turn it off, it's not a big deal. Now, this page of the settings relates to sharing information and Windows error reporting. Windows error reporting is a feature that collects information about failed apps and failed components of Windows and sends it off to Microsoft. Now, Microsoft collects this error reporting information in the aggregate. Now, we're talking about tens of thousands, maybe millions of different error reports. And what they do is they figure out which errors are causing the most problems for people. And this helps them prioritize their bug troubleshooting. So if they see that hundreds of thousands of people are having a particular problem with an app failing, they'll look at the different error reports and kind of figure out what's causing the problem and put their energy into that. If there are problems where they're fairly rare, only 1 or 2 people are having the problem, they're not going to do anything about it. So you can turn error reporting on and don't expect a call from Microsoft to be like, hey, we saw that your browser failed and we wanted to help you with it. It doesn't work that way. But in the long term, over months or years, if you leave it on, you'll be casting your vote for what the most important problems are, so you might see some benefit from it. Internet Explorer compatibility lists. If you happen to use Internet Explorer, and who does, they made some changes to how Internet Explorer renders websites, and they know that that might cause some websites to not render correctly. So they have these compatibility lists, which just say, hey, this particular popular website doesn't work correctly with our new rendering, and we should use the old version of rendering. There's no reason to turn this off. I just leave it on. You can turn it off individually for websites later if you're a web developer and you need to test stuff. So you can just leave that on. Now, these two settings control which information your PC and Windows will share with individual apps. So when you log into Windows, you'll probably specify a name and a picture. You can give this information to apps, such as, say, a Facebook app. And now Facebook theoretically could take your name and account picture and post it somewhere on the internet. If you want to be confident that an app you run never shares your name or account picture, you should turn that off. But if you're not that concerned about it, you can leave it on. Windows location platform, if your computer has the ability to sense where you are, either by looking at Wi-Fi networks and recognizing a signature and tying that to a location, or by using the GPS global positioning system to determine your specific latitude and longitude, this is really useful. For example, you might have a mapping app and you can open it up and it will show you precisely where you are and give you directions someplace else. Windows location platform is really useful that way. If you want to keep your location secret from your apps, like if you want to be confident that Facebook is never going to tell people where you are, then you can turn that off. Now, this is the Let's Get Started pages. Windows is actually doing something in the background, so you can't skip this kind of demonstration. But you need to watch it at least once because Windows is giving you clues about a user interface that a lot of people really struggle with. They're showing you demonstrations on how to use different shortcuts, such as here. They're showing you how to open the charms up. Now, I tell everybody to be sure to watch this because I think 80% of the problems that people have with Windows 8 are because they didn't take a few moments to watch that demonstration. Once it's done and once setup is complete, the start screen opens up. Now, notice that it logged me on automatically. That's not always going to happen. But here I am at the Windows 8 start screen and we can see that setup has completed. So let's go ahead and check and see what has been transferred over from Windows XP. Now, I'm going to open up the desktop. This is going to be a very familiar environment. And right away we notice the fish that I selected. My desktop background isn't here. But I do see my document here. This is the document that I made, and it transferred over from Windows XP to Windows 8. All my settings are gone. There's no Chrome installed. If you recall, I installed Chrome in XP. It's gone too. The only thing that gets transferred over are the files from your Documents folder. Now I want to show you one other thing. If you open up Explorer, and I'll just use the recycle bin to do this, and then browse to the Windows.old folder on your C drive, you'll see all the stuff that you had in Windows XP that it couldn't migrate over. So if you had files stored in folders other than your user profile, you might be able to find them here, including any program files. So now if you look under program files here, you can see my Chrome install. This won't allow me to run Google Chrome. I need to reinstall it and any other apps that I use. However, if you saved a file within the program files folder, you should be able to retrieve it from here. That was actually really common in the XP era. Apps didn't always save your files within your documents or pictures or videos or music folders. Instead, they often saved it in the exact same folder that the application executable ran from. We don't do that anymore. Developers aren't even allowed to do it, but it was common then. So if you happen to have files stored in the program files folder, you should be able to go dig them out here. Now, once you've run the XP computer for a week and you are sure that you have all the files you need, go ahead and remove the Windows.old folder. It will save you a great deal of disk space. So that wraps up the process of upgrading from XP to Windows 8. Let's go ahead and move on to upgrading to Windows 8 from Windows Vista. And now we continue our tour of old Microsoft operating systems with Windows Vista. I've changed the default background here so we can tell if our customized background gets through. And you can see I've installed Google Chrome so we can determine whether apps installed continue to be available after the upgrade. Let's check the computer properties dialog box to check a couple of pieces of data. The first we want to look at is the system type. You can see that this shows a 32-bit operating system. If you remember from Objective 1.1, if you're running 32-bit versions of Windows Vista, you have to upgrade to a 32-bit version of Windows 8. If this said 64-bit operating system, we'd have to be sure to install the 64-bit version of Windows 8. You might also recall that while the 64-bit version requires 2 gigs of RAM, the 32-bit version requires 1 gig of RAM. So looking at the current installed memory, we have 2 gigs on this computer, which is twice what we need for a 32-bit operating system. You might also recall that to upgrade from Windows Vista, you need to have Service Pack 1 installed. This has Service Pack 2 installed, so no problem there. We're ready to go forward with the upgrade. I'll open up Explorer now. Just make sure that we have enough disk space. It still requires 16 gigs of free disk space to upgrade. We have 90 gigs here. This is the Windows 8 CD, so I'll double-click Setup to run it. We'll just grab the most recent updates to the setup process. This setup process very closely resembles what we just did for Windows XP, so I'm not going to show you every single step, but I do want to show you a couple of unique things, and we'll finish up by showing the final result. Just as with XP, we need to accept a license agreement. Here in the Choose What to Keep page, you'll see the first big difference. Windows Vista gives you an additional option, which is Keep Windows Settings and Personal Files. As you recall, Windows XP only prompted you to keep your personal files only or to get rid of everything. But Windows Vista adds the option to keep your Windows settings. I don't know why it's not available in XP, but with Windows Vista, if you choose this option, things like your desktop background will continue to be available, and other customizations as well, though it's only going to be visible when you're at the desktop because Windows 8 includes this new start screen. So we'll keep settings and personal files so we can see what gets transferred over. So before I start the install, I'm just going to make a document on the desktop so that we can make sure it's still there. All right, there's my test document, and I'll start the install. Like I said, this is basically identical to what will happen with XP, so we'll do some fast forwarding and jump to the finished product. Now this stage of the setup looks familiar, and I will just choose Express Settings here. You'll notice something different here. Because we're upgrading from Windows Vista, it gives us the option to sign into our PC with a Microsoft account. Now, this wasn't an option with XP. It simply upgraded our local account. To brief you quickly, local accounts are the type of accounts that every previous version of Windows has used. It's an account that exists on the local computer and doesn't have access to anything on the internet or any other computer. These Microsoft accounts, they're not really for business use, they're for consumer use. You log in with what they used to call a live ID, which is based on your email address. But basically, if you're a consumer, this is a great way to keep your settings synchronized between different computers. So I'll log in with mine now. So here's the Windows 8 desktop after upgrading from Vista. And because I've logged in with my Live ID, it picked up my settings that I use for my other PCs. I'll jump over to the desktop here. Now you can see that this picture comes from my live settings. So it did transfer over my settings, but they were then overwritten by the settings that were stored in my Windows Live account. You can see the document that I created on the desktop is still here though. And there is no Chrome. I'll just search the settings for it. So the app I installed did not get carried over, which is what we expected to see. Now we're ready to move on to an upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8. So now let's talk about the upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8. Here we are on the Windows 7 desktop. You can see we have Google Chrome installed. I'll just change the desktop background so we can see if our settings are carried over. Select some pretty landscapes, and then we'll make a new document here on the desktop. And we're ready to launch setup. First, I should verify the version of Windows 7 that I'm running here. So I'll look at the properties for the system dialog box. I have 2 gigs of RAM, which is plenty. And notice that it's a 64-bit operating system. That means I need to upgrade to the 64-bit version of Windows 8. Also notice that I'm running Windows 7 Ultimate here. That means I can't upgrade to the standard Windows 8 Pro nor the Windows 8 Enterprise. I can only upgrade to Windows 8 Pro 64-bit. So I'll insert that DVD to get started. Now in the Choose What to Keep page, you'll see the option has changed just a little bit from what we saw on Windows Vista. Here, the first option allows us to keep Windows settings, personal files, and apps. That's new. With Windows Vista, you had to reinstall all your apps. If you're upgrading from Windows 7, it's a pretty seamless process. All your apps should keep working as long as you select that option. So I'll select that option and continue on. It's going to be exactly the same setup process we saw for Windows Vista until we get to the desktop. So let's fast forward and we'll show the finished product. Here we are back at the Windows 8 desktop after upgrading from Windows 7. You can see this time I chose to make a local account so it didn't copy over all of my settings. I'll jump over to the desktop here. You can see it didn't actually retain my desktop background. It turns out if you select one of the standard backgrounds, it will change it anyway. However, we can see that other settings were transferred over okay. For example, the fact that Chrome was copied over to the new taskbar is proof that the settings were transferred properly. And I'll launch this just to show that Chrome continues to work. The fact is, if you upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8, your apps should work completely transparently. One more thing, just like in previous versions of Windows, you should go in and either salvage files that didn't get transferred properly from your previous version of Windows, or if everything keeps working correctly, you can go ahead and delete that windows.old directory and save yourself a lot of disk space. Up next, I'd like to talk about how to upgrade from the standard version of Windows 8, which they call simply Windows 8, to Windows 8 Pro. This is a common upgrade if you bought the regular version of Windows 8 and then later decided you wanted remote desktop or some other really useful feature in Windows 8 Pro. Microsoft makes it really easy. From the start screen, I'll search for Upgrade and then switch to searching Settings. Here you'll see the option Get More Features with a New Version of Windows. I'll click that. Now this is the same tool you'd use to install a variety of different for-fee type features, and you can see it gives you two separate options. I already have a product key, or I want to buy a product key online. What I like to do is to go on to any online store and find an upgrade key. Then you can click I already have a product key and just enter it here. So you're going to specifically be buying a product key to upgrade from the standard version of Windows 8 to the professional version of Windows 8. Once you're done, it'll take care of the rest for you automatically. It doesn't do anything to your existing system but simply add features, so you don't have to worry about losing settings or files or apps. Should all go just fine. If you want to buy a product key through the tool, just click I want to buy a product key online. Now you can see it's not actually an option here yet, but if you're running the standard version of Windows 8, you will see it. This provides you the option to buy the Windows 8 Media Center pack because I'm already running Windows 8 Pro, but if this were the standard version of Windows 8, you would just see another option here to select it. So you would choose it and then enter in your payment information. Now I'd like to talk about how to install Windows to run from a VHD file. Here's our Windows 8 desktop. The first thing that we need to do is to create a VHD file that we can later install Windows into. So I'm going to open up the WinX menu. This is a great shortcut. I just held down the Windows key and press X, and then I'll select the Computer Management Console. Now, within Disk Management, I will right-click Disk Management and then click Create VHD. I'll specify a spot for the VHD file, which can simply be the root of the C drive. And you can see here it gives you options for either a VHD or a VHDX file. The VHD is fine. The only real advantage is that you can go over 2 terabytes in size, but I don't need to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the regular VHD file. Windows 7 doesn't support a VHDX file, even though you could follow this exact same technique in Windows 7. The difference between a fixed disk and a dynamically expanding disk is that we're going to specify the size of the disk here, and I'll go ahead and make it 32 gigabytes to ensure we have enough room to install Windows 8. If I do a fixed size, then Windows goes ahead and writes out a 32 gig file, which is mostly empty. That consumes my disk space right away. Dynamically expanding starts out with a very, very small file, only a couple of megabytes. And then as I write new files to it, it grows and grows and grows up to a limit of the 32 gigabyte that I specified. So dynamically expanding is always going to be a little more efficient use of your disk space, but you run the risk of running out of disk space. Whereas with a fixed size, you immediately allocate the maximum size of the disk so you can't run out, but you might be wasting a lot of disk space. Here's my new disk in the disk management console. It's not a real disk, it's a virtual disk, just a file on my existing disk. So I'll right click over here and then select Initialize Disk. This lets me read it. So I'm going to perform a clean install on this VHD file here. I've inserted the Windows 8 DVD, as you can see, so I'll simply restart this computer and boot from the disk. When prompted, I'll press a key, and this launches the Windows 8 setup. Now, Windows 8 by default will install from any physical disk on your computer, but it can't see virtual hard disk files. So you have to do something a little tricky here. On the screen where it prompts you to select a language, hold down the Shift key and press F10. This opens up this command prompt. I don't know why they don't give you a link for this. It's a complete secret. So now that we have a command prompt open, we can issue commands to this Windows PE kind of primitive basic operating system and allow it to mount that VHD file, the virtual hard disk file, as a physical disk. So we're going to use the command WMIC, which allows us to interface to Windows management commands. Basically, these are the same tools that the graphical tools you're accustomed to using interface to, but we're going to access them directly from this command line tool. And the command we're going to issue to WMIC is logical disk get name. And this is going to list all of the disks, the physical disks, that Windows can currently see. So you can see that Windows can see 3 different drives, C, D, and X. We need to figure out where the VHD file we created is. So I'm going to use the directory command, dir, and then specify each drive in turn. So I lucked out. I checked the directory of the C drive, and you can see there's my file, win8.vhd. Now, it might seem obvious that it would be the C drive, but that's not always the case. Sometimes the C drive in your regular version of Windows will come up as a D drive or the E drive or something different during setup, so you have to check specifically. But now we know that our VHD file is located on the C drive at win8.vhd in the root of it. So we can specify that. So we can specify that the VHD file acts like a physical drive and kind of trick setup into installing Windows into it. To do that, we need to use the diskpart tool. So just run the diskpart command. Now we're going to select the VHD file that we just found. So the command is select vdisk file equals, and then the path to the file. That selects it. Now we need to attach it as if it were a physical disk. So I ran the command attach vdisk, and you can see it was successful. Now I can exit diskpart, and close my command prompt. Now I can continue setup just like normal. So now this page of setup appears, which you see normally. However, this time you can see that I have a 32 gigabyte virtual disk available. Now you can see that Windows Setup here is warning me that Windows can't be installed on this drive. This is only because I'm installing within a virtual machine, and the virtual machine doesn't support booting from a VHD, but most modern physical hardware will be able to do this just fine. Follow the same steps and then select the virtual hard disk file. From here, setup continues exactly like it normally does, so I won't bore you with the rest of it. Now let's talk about how to install Windows to Go. This requires Windows 8 Enterprise, so you can't do this from Windows 8 Pro. First, I'll show you the type of hardware that you need. You need specifically a Windows to Go certified flash drive. So this fellow Woody Walton here happens to list several of the currently certified drives. I'm using the first one here, the Kingston Data Traveler. There are several others. You'll notice that all of them are much more expensive than a typical flash drive. The reason for this is that they are super fast. With a traditional flash drive, if you were to try to install Windows on it and boot from it, it would be really painfully slow. So these are all USB 3 flash drives, and they're all much faster than a typical drive, and they're all at least 32 gigs in space. That's the minimum amount of space that you need to run Windows 8 from a flash drive. Now, I've heard tell that some other flash drives that aren't technically certified for Windows to Go will work. I tried several and I couldn't get it to work, so if I were you, I would avoid the headaches if you really want to do this and get certified flash drives. So once you have your flash drive, you can connect it to your computer and search the settings for Windows to Go, and then run the Windows to Go app. Now, if you try to do this from another version of Windows, you'll see a similar tool, but it won't be the right tool. You need to be using Windows 8 Enterprise. When you run the Create a Windows to Go Workspace tool, it shows you a list of all USB flash drives that meet the hardware requirements. So again, you won't see any non-certified drives here. Go ahead and select your drive and then click Next. Now, the tool prompts you to select a Windows 8 image. Here's how Windows to Go works. You take a Windows image, which is basically looks like a hard drive. It's got all the Windows system files installed. It's got apps installed, all the settings you need. Everything that makes up a Windows installation is in a single file. It's called a WIM file. You'll notice that it has a .wim extension. So in this page, you'll select the WIM file that you're going to use. In an enterprise environment, in a big corporation, they'll create custom WIM images for their desktop and mobile PCs. These images will have things like virtual private network connections and all the links to the different websites, and it'll have the user's email set up. It'll have everything that particular user needs to work in a desktop environment. By creating a Windows to Go image, you'll take that image and put it on a flash drive. Then they can take that flash drive and connect it to any computer, just about any computer, that can run Windows 8 and can boot from a flash drive. And they just plug it in and start it up, and they have their desktop image right there, and it's really very secure. Windows 8 blocks your access to the local hard drives in the computer, so there's no risk of an infection getting from the computer to your image, or malware getting from the PC to the corporate network after you establish a VPN connection. And there's this weird separation where you're using the hardware, but much of it is blocked. So in a nutshell, you can use Windows to Go to make a custom Windows 8 image that you can take anywhere and then transform any PC that will boot from a flash drive into your own custom version of Windows. So this computer happens to have the standard Windows 8 Enterprise image available to it. So I'll select that and then click Next. But in a corporate environment, you'd probably ask the system's administrators to provide you with the corporate system image. Now, on the Set a BitLocker Password page option, you get the chance to enable BitLocker on it. What BitLocker does is it encrypts the entire hard drive. Encrypting does a couple of things. First, it protects the data on there without a password or a key, you won't be able to access the data, which might include, say, passwords to the corporate network or confidential files. BitLocker also protects the drive from any sort of modification. So you couldn't plug the flash drive into a computer and have malware go in there and modify it. That would corrupt the BitLocker checksums, and when you tried to boot from it, BitLocker would know, I've been modified. It won't let you boot from it. At least it greatly reduces the risk that malware could get through there. So I will protect this drive with BitLocker and type my password twice. Type a longer password twice. Now this just warns you that it's going to format your flash drive. You can't be using the flash drive for something else because it's going to wipe all your data off. So just have a brand new clean flash drive. Now, as you can see, this is going to take a few minutes to copy the entire 4 gig Windows 8 installation to the flash drive. While that's working, I'll talk to you about a couple of catches. Now, if you're going to run Windows to Go from an older PC, it'll probably work completely perfectly, and you can just plug it in, it'll boot from the flash drive by default, no problems. If you're installing it from a Windows 7 or Windows 8 PC or even a Windows Vista PC and you have BitLocker enabled, it might get a little trickier, especially if the BitLocker is used in conjunction with a TPM, that's a Trusted Platform Module chip. If you want to run Windows to Go on a PC that has BitLocker with the TPM enabled, then you'll need to suspend BitLocker before Windows to Go will work properly. So I'll show you how to do that quickly. We're going to search the settings for BitLocker and select Manage BitLocker. Now, this PC, it's a virtual PC, and you can see it doesn't have BitLocker turned on. However, from this same dialog, if BitLocker is enabled, you'll see a link for Suspend BitLocker here. All you need to do is to click Suspend BitLocker. Then you can shut Windows down and plug in your Windows to Go drive, and it should boot up with no problem. That's really the only catch you need to know about. Now there's nothing much more to see here. It's going to finish copying, and then I'll be able to disconnect the drive and plug it into another drive and just boot Windows 8, no problem. So we'll go on to the next lesson. This is Tony Northrup for TrainSignal, and I hope you found the lesson both educational and enjoyable, and I'll see you next time.